More,
More.
much more. Sometimes we'll talk about music. Sometimes we'll talk about politics. We just talk all the time. It
Yeah.
should be the Sunshine Sports Report talk.
Yes, sir.
So
Good evening, everybody. This is the real GM, Grayson Marshall Jr., the metacognition maven, the guy to get you to believe in you. And to the left of me,
Dr. Adrian A. Never forget the A Gentry.
this is the real GM show on 904 Live. Do me a favor, support what's on 904 Live. There's great programming. There's a lot of great information. They got sports. They've got Black history, music. There's a lot that goes on in that station. We're just happy to be here. We've been doing this 9 years. We just realized that. So next week, the topic from our first show.
The first one,
very first show we did.
Absolutely.
What's holding us back? And it's kind of funny that that topic is coming right now because of kind of what's going on in the world today. To look back, and we really want to address what really is holding people back. The challenge that they're facing right now is more evident than before. But tonight's topic, it takes us down that same road. It's kind of funny how all of it seems to stack on each other, and it's just the way God has it. But tonight we're talking about you are responsible for your own happiness.
Right.
And I believe that people at some level believe that. I believe they believe it at some level. But the practices that they have seem to dictate everything external having more control over their happiness.
Absolutely, and especially right now. I mean, we got COVID. we have murder, homicide of African Americans. We have riots going on. Next is going to be aliens. But
I've heard aliens.
2020 is really giving it to us right now. And I think right now, more than anything, it's hard for people to say, I am responsible for my own happiness. There's too much external coming in. So we have the media, we have other people, we have finances, everything weighing on us. And to really be happy in that time, I don't really feel like people have the right tools, right?
Here's my question. How many people are really happy? I mean, honestly, when I look and talk to people, if you gauge social media right now, I would venture to say that the majority of people are not happy.
Absolutely not.
They're angry, they're fed up, they're frustrated. And again, I guess for me, when I look at it, I ask the question all the time. Black folks are being murdered. I got that. There's a lot of frustration. Racism is evident and apparent again.
Right.
But the question I have, Doc, is it never stops. I mean, I don't, and that's my thing. It's all. I guess maybe because of the magnitude of the visibility now and the desire to bring it to the forefront. Is more readily available than ever, but murders never stopped. Racism never stopped. And I think that I'm trying to figure out why all of a sudden now is it so relevant and prevalent. I mean, obviously the act that happened brought it to the attention, but did we miss all the rest of it? Have we ignored it up until this point is my question?
You know what? It just hasn't been in the forefront. And we talk about it all the time. Most people react off of emotion more than anything else. It has always been in the forefront. I just think right now, and once again, we're going through so many different disasters that have happened in a very short period of time. So you have COVID, you have the layoffs, you have furloughs. Now you have people dying. So I have negativity coming into my spirit constantly. So that was the main topic. You know, where's the economy going? Is it about to fail? Are we going bankrupt? You know, what is the stimulus all about? Then we go right into death, back to back to back. And I think in 3 weeks we had three pointless, senseless murders. So I think living off of all that emotion from February into now has really caused an explosion. Racism has always been there. It has never been a point in time where I can say racism hasn't been there. However, with all the emotions heightened, I believe it's even more so prevalent right now is because everybody's focusing on it.
I'm asking myself this question. Can you even be happy right now? I think if people come across, Doc, as happy, I think that's translated to so many people as you don't have any emotion, you don't care. I think for me, so for example, for me, I know that right now, even with everything that's going on, I'm in a wonderful place in my life.
Absolutely.
There's so many good things going on in my life that I'm focused on. And I think sometimes there are people out there watching, and maybe you feeling like this too. You are actually feeling okay about not okay about what's going on, but where your life is right now is not in a bad place. And I think some people feel bad about feeling okay, feel guilty about feeling good. It's like, no, everything is all right in my life. You know what I mean? Maybe they didn't get laid off. Maybe their money didn't change. Some people actually are making money during this time right now. They're growing. And then I see you're in real estate. I see folks in real estate still knocking down deals left and right. In the midst of all this, I see companies shifting, they're pivoting. Online business went through the roof. I mean, obviously, it looks like Jeff Bezos may become the first trillionaire. Right. With what's going on there. So there's some things going on, and I think that people right now are saying, I don't even know about, I think they're guilty for being happy, because if you're happy, I guess then you're not buying into the whole narrative. There's something wrong with you. Your emotions aren't right if you're happy.
Absolutely, and I commend the people, and you said all these accolades, you said all these successes. I commend the people who don't have that going on right now, who aren't winning deals, whose business isn't booming, who has been laid off and furloughed, that are still have a sense of joy about them. Now, I think those are the people that look the craziest to individuals now, right? It's not the people who are actually winning, it's the people who can still be happy in the midst of all the confusion that's going on. And I think that's what we really thought about when we thought about doing this topic, was how do you be happy? How do you maintain happiness even when everything around you is falling apart?
I think for me, I've literally grown closer to God.
Yeah.
I think I've literally grown more convicted and convinced that He's in control in the midst of what's going on. I think I'm more convinced now that all of this is working for our good. I've gotten to the point, Doc, where I don't look at what I see. I don't ignore what I see.
Right.
I don't delve into the depth of what I see, because a lot of it, when it comes down to it, is just a mere distraction. I mean, I look at the chain of events, and COVID-19 had crippled the U.S.
Absolutely.
Crippled the world.
Absolutely.
And in the midst of that, what tended to happen, as soon as all this stuff went down with Mr. Floyd, now all of a sudden, it wasn't the topic of discussion anymore. Almost became non-existent for a while as a media top story. So I look at how that shifted, and in the mainstream of the flow, we stayed in this whole negative space. But for people who maybe didn't buy into COVID,
right,
maybe people who didn't get as worried about it as some other folks, they may not be as moved by all of what's going on with Mr. Floyd either.
Absolutely.
So now all of a sudden, you feel like, or you become victimized by your apparent trust in God. Here's a question, Doc. Should you, if you are a principle-based, kingdom-minded person, should you not be happy right now?
And that's broad. And I want to tell you why it's broad, because you just said kingdom-minded, right? Well, I think most Christians feel like they're kingdom-minded, right? But a lot of them are talking. You know, a lot of people, we all have problems, we all have sin, we all have these things. But at the same time, it depends on where have you been taught the Bible, one. And do you understand it for yourself? Because you can go back to the Pentecostals and the Baptist preachers where they preach nothing but fear into you. So all you know is fear, right? And you don't understand that God said, well, I leave you with peace. Not as the world gives you peace. Not understanding that you can have peace no matter what battle is going on anyway. So when we're looking at a lot of the things that's going on in society today, they're external factors that are actually ruining what we already should have inside of us. But if you haven't ever read that scripture, if you really don't understand what it means, then guess what? You're always going to react to the external factor. You and I talk about this all the time. First of all, joy is what we all should be seeking.
No doubt.
Right?
No doubt. No doubt.
Right? Joy is an internal thing.
Correct.
Right? No one can take that away from you.
Correct.
Happiness is external.
Right.
So majority of people are looking for happiness on the external. So if everything around me is bad, guess what? I don't have any happiness. I don't have any joy. Why? Because it wasn't something that's instilled in you anyway.
Joy is your responsibility. Happiness is happiness is what you become with the joy.
Right.
Because when we look around us, again, everything that's going on external is giving us a temperature to
gauge.
Right. Or to become relative to.
Right.
So I was talking to some folks that are friends of mine that are white, and they're having a struggle with being happy right now because they've run into some relationships that have all of a sudden shifted because of what happened.
Absolutely.
They're in a quandary now of trying to. They had relationships
right.
that they thought were happy relationships.
Right.
They had relationships that they thought were joyful relationship.
Absolutely.
And after this went on, they are literally in a quandary of what to do. And they find themselves challenged with, how do I even deal with this? What do I do here? How do I make this, what am I doing wrong?
Right.
And they're finding themselves unhappy. And I think for me, and I'm going to ask you this, I consider myself joyful and happy right now.
Correct.
What are you doing right now that's keeping you that way? What is Dr. Adrian, never forget the age entry, doing right now to stay joyful and maintain happiness?
And for me to even answer that question, I have to go back into my story. So I got to get naked, not physically. It ain't about to happen. That's not
we ain't
this
got that
type,
show yet, but we'll have that one soon. We'll have that show soon.
But I have to get naked. When you and I met, previous to you and I met, I was going through a horrible divorce, right? And I was stripped of basically anything. So my entire life was a total different lifestyle than the one I lead today, right? So I got to a point I got married, and I began to go to church Saturday, every Sunday, every Wednesday. I'm in the church. I built a company. I'm a father. I'm a father in the household. I'm married, no longer a boyfriend or out there chasing women. So everything about who I was attached to my marriage, all external, nothing internal, right? So that relationship failed miserably, right? So I go from a father to a baby daddy. I go from a husband. I go from a husband to a baby daddy. To a boyfriend. I go from a father to a baby daddy. I go from an entrepreneur to an employee, right? And this shift, in that instance, I didn't know who I was, right? So I get into another relationship. This one was even more emotionally frustrating than the first, right? And I actually coined it. It's bad when you name the relationship. Like, it was like the foursome of frustration. So, so everything that went on in this relationship, actually the girl I was in a relationship with, her best friend's husband was my client.
Right.
So everything that went on in our relationship, she ran over and told her best friend, which her best friend told her husband, and it would come back to me, right? So you have your failed marriage,
Right.
and so everything you've done in that relationship, now you have to question yourself. Then you go into this other relationship, and everyone, in that instance, it seemed as though everyone around me, it was always my fault. And even though I know it wasn't my fault, when everything around you is falling apart, you can't help believing it's your fault.
Right.
So I'm at that point, I'm damaged, right? And every day, and I remember I was broke. I was living in a house, no stove, no hot water heater, no refrigerator, and I would work every day, trying to get back what I had. And I remember sitting in that house sometimes thinking about killing myself more than I thought about being alive. And so I have to tell the entire story so you can see what happiness, how I can be joyful now.
Right.
So after that, I worked my butt off, and then finally it all started working for me. Right? So I went from this house with no hot water heater, no stove, no refrigerator. My pockets are now full. I move out of this house. I move into a larger house. I buy a new car. And then I find myself sitting in the bed thinking about killing myself with a gun in my hand. I'm like, wow. And in that instance, I realized, first of all, something's wrong. Right? Something's not right here.
Right.
So I had to figure out what is going on. And what I realized is this, one thing. I kept ruminating over all the anger, frustration, and pain that was going on in my life, and I never healed from it. And so I tell everybody, when you're in that state, frustration, anger, pain, first of all, you have to live in the moment. I can't do anything about my past. Right? I can't do anything about my future, but I can live right here in the moment, right? That's where happiness truthfully lives. Because if I'm constantly ruminating on all of my negativity, the pain, the frustration, what the world is telling me is going on and how everything is going to fail, guess what? I'm always going to be in a frustrated and depressed state.
And so when we look at the world today, based on what you just said, they're hurting people. They're healing people. And I would love to know how many people that are hurting actually personally experienced that. Actually personally went through what they say they're hurting about. And when we talk about healing from it, I think the one thing that has to really come to light is, are you accepting some past pain that you didn't truthfully experience, that you have awareness of? Because I have awareness of my back, I have awareness of slavery, I have awareness of all the demeaning and deplorable things that have happened to African Americans all the time. But I can say at 53 years old, I've never had a personal experience like that. I've never actually had it myself. Now, am I naive to believe it's not? No.
Okay.
Do I know folks that have gone through it? Yes, but I haven't. So I think that at times there's a there's a need to feel that. And my question is, why do people want to do that? Why do they want to go there? Why do you think they want to go there?
Negativity feeds. Negativity feeds negativity. First of all, the news wouldn't put out so much negativity, and most people didn't like it.
Correct. Correct.
Most people enjoy negativity. They enjoy feeling anxious. Why do people watch scary movies?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Why do you sit back and watch the news for hours on end, even though when you finish, you feel in a state of anxiety?
Mm-hmm.
Right? We don't even realize that we've been programmed to actually seek information that's negative.
Correct.
Because people don't understand, it's actually dopamine. It's a drug.
It is, no
right?
doubt, no doubt.
So anytime that you're seeking information that's negative, anytime that you're gossiping, you're actually feeding yourself dopamine, chemically. So we have to get to an understanding of what actually is feeding us dopamine so we can get off the dope.
And here's what happens to dope. And again, God's beautiful design of who we are takes those things, and either they work for us or they work against us.
Absolutely.
They work the same way. So there's nothing wrong with dopamine when it's in the right place.
Absolutely.
It's produced by serotonin. Without it, it's not there. So dopamine is a wonderful high.
Absolutely.
You can get it from doing other things. But in retrospect, it works both ways. The principles of God, I think that's what's unique about God himself, is that his principles work. How do you want them to work for you? They're going to work. What you say is going to
manifest,
bring you to what it is. So if you're saying the negative stuff, I don't care how much empathy you have with your heart. What you speak, you're going to get. And so if we're talking about being better, doing better, raising up a level of person that's going to be different, we can't talk about how bad it is, how long we've been down, how frustrated it needs to change.
Right.
Because the more we speak that, the more we're going to get that.
Absolutely.
It's going to happen. I mean, I look back to Martin Luther King, and he said, hate cannot drive out hate. And I don't think people are intentionally, and some are, but I don't think there's a lot of people who intentionally are hating. They just want change. And I think the change they want is in a system that can't change unless the people themselves change.
Absolutely.
People don't want to change, but they want the system to change. I think Jim Rome talks about it. He talks about it. He said, we want policy to change. We want politics to change. We want religion to change. We want all these things to change. But there's no change unless you change.
Absolutely.
And I think that when we look at happiness, the frustrating part of it is that you're responsible for how you handle what's going on externally.
Absolutely.
If you are solid internally, what you are able to deal with externally becomes a little bit easier. It becomes a little bit lighter.
Correct.
Because I'm doing better on the inside. You gave your story. I'm a lot the same way. When it comes to, I love hard. I'm going to love people no matter what. I said even when this was going on, I was going to take the stance to love my way through it.
Right.
I'm not going, it's not about me picking sides or choosing sides. I'm going to say, this isn't right. This needs to change. This is wrong. This needs to change. I'm going to do this love thing, and that's the way it's going to be for me.
Absolutely.
But I know what it's like to go through pain. I know what it's like to go through shame. So it resonates with me, the feeling. But like you said, the healing from the feeling allows me to handle moving forward so much better.
Absolutely.
Because I've taken the time to heal from that feeling. And I think a lot of people, if they would pull back the emotion and self-examine where they are, why are you mad?
Well, and that's the whole word, responsibility, right? Most people don't want to be held accountable for their own actions, right? I read this book, so I'm doing research. I was doing research for my book, The 6 A's of Intimacy, right? So I read both sides, male and female. I need to understand what people are really thinking and desiring.
Sure.
So I read this book, If He Will Change, if my husband will change, I'll be happy. And it's funny because this author, she gets raw, right? But she goes into the book thinking when she gets married that everything is supposed to be okay. So every time he would do something and go out and have fun, she would find herself angry. So every time she was washing dishes and he was hanging with her friends, she would find herself angry. So she kept thinking in her mind that if he changed, then her happiness would be there. Wrong answer. No. We never want to look at ourselves when there's a problem with happiness. We want to look at our boss. We want to look at our, who was it that said, we've been told to hemp hill. We've been told to blame our boss, our mother, our father, our sisters, our brothers, but we've never ourselves. And that's where we find the biggest problem with happiness, because we're looking for it externally. When I watch people jump from relationship to relationship to relationship, Well, the problem with jumping from relationship to relationship is you're not happy, so everybody you find, you make them responsible for your happiness.
Correct.
That's why you're jumping from relationship to relationship.
All the time, and you're never satisfied. So let's go here.
Right.
Equality is a cry from the world right now. They want equality.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my question to you, and those y'all watching, feel free to chime in. What would that look like in today's world? What would have to happen for people to be satisfied with things being equal? What would have to happen?
There would never be a place in time. There would never be a place in time. There would never be one action that's going to satisfy the masses.
Well, wait a minute. Everybody is asking for equality. This is what the cry is for equality. And I'm just wanting to know, what does that look like? Does it, I don't know, what would equality look like today?
And that's the thing. and that's why I said people are constantly searching, right? If this changes, then I'll be happy.
External.
This is the problem.
Right.
Nothing will ever change enough for you to be completely happy. So we can talk about equality all day long, right? Anything that a person is constantly complaining about and they say they want, I've never seen a person get it and be completely happy.
No, exactly. I don't care if it's a car, the house, whatever it is. Whatever you long for external, at some point it's going to let you down.
Absolutely.
At some point it's no longer going to satisfy you. I remember Will Smith and Jada talking about their relationship, and he made the comment clearly. He said, I'm not responsible for her happiness.
Absolutely not.
I'm responsible for my happiness. She's responsible for hers, and the two of us should come together as two happy people.
Correct.
To create a great relationship. Correct. And I think that's ultimately what we all would love to have, but it's very hard to get when you're not at a place of peace. You're not at a place of joy.
Correct.
But I still want to. There's got to be. And if y'all are watching, if you all can tell us what equality would look like, I would love to hear what that would be, Mr. Petty. Because I really don't know. Is it economic equality? Is it, what is it? Is social equality? Because the reality is, I was good at math, but Caucasian America represents 60% of the population. African Americans represent 13%. We're never going to be equal in numbers of people. We're never going to be equal in owned businesses. So I'm trying to figure out what I hear them talking about it, and I just want to know what it would look like. Is there an apology that can be made by white America to satisfy the African American community? Is there an apology? Is there now? Again, you and I talked about this. We talked about initiatives and direction, having a plan. So you and I both talked about what is the one thing that could probably be addressed that would move us in that direction. We talked about police brutality, having some more checks and balances in that area.
Absolutely.
Because that seems to be an area of high challenge with a lot of people. But at the end of the day, I would love to know that, because, again, when we're talking about you're responsible for your own happiness, if people are looking for equality to make them happy, or some sort of reparation to make them happy, or some sort of you owe me to make them happy, I'm concerned that you're not going to get that, and you're living in a world that you'll never be happy.
And I know. I know that's what most people are living in a world they'll never be happy. It's an internal work.
Right. Why don't people want to do it? Why can't people see that? What is it that keeps people from seeing the fact that it's an internal work?
Because we've never been taught that. I was actually reading a quote today, and it was pretty funny. I'm not going to say who it is, but it's one of the people that are in the news, in the media a lot. He says, no matter what you do wrong, never blame yourself. Now, this is taught, right? Like, no matter what's wrong, you never blame yourself. You always find something else to blame.
What?
Listen, this is a public figure that is constantly in the media, and this is what is taught. And the reality is we've never been taught to introspect, right? We've never been taught that. There's never been a class that we've had. Anything that's ever gone wrong in our life, we've always found someone else to blame for, right? So a process of introspecting, and I think that's even the process of finding your own happiness and understanding what is really taking it apart, is that introspection, right? And so I tell people all the time, when you're doing this introspection, go back to the mind map that you learned as a kid, right? Make that circle, right? Write that individual's name. People close to you, 5 closest people, each bubble, write that down. Then talk about your job, write that down, right? And begin to mind map and understand how it makes you feel. So if I write down my sister Peggy's name,
Right.
it's my sister Peggy, and I think about the emotion and feeling tied to my sister Peggy.
Right.
If there's something negative there, then guess what? That may not be something a relationship I need to hold on to,
Right.
or constantly engage. And I think that's every part. Even dealing with this right now with racism.
Right.
Begin to see how it truthfully makes you feel. Because what we've done is we've picked up on other people's emotion.
Right. No
Right?
question.
We've picked up on other people's anger, and you talked about it. You says, yeah, in your lifetime, you've never dealt with racism straight up, straight on. Me, personally, I've never dealt with it.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Like, maybe I'm light-skinned, maybe I'm my age.
I'm not like you. I'm not like you at all.
But I tell people all the
say
time,
that.
it's hard for me to be racist because no one has ever I've never been a part of something so horrible when it comes to someone of the opposite race. In fact, a lot of people of the opposite race have helped me out. So it's hard for me to say, guess what? I know what equality should look like for other people because guess what? It'll never be equal. So with me, I'm happy with helping Adrian. I'm happy with changing me because I know one thing, I can change the world around me,
Correct.
but I can't change the entire world.
Correct.
So me taking the pressure of the entire world on will always make me frustrated, and I can never get to a place of happiness.
Introspection is something that we have to individually do. Doesn't our biblical foundation talk to us about introspection?
Well,
It talks about us coming clean. It talks about us presenting our bodies as living sacrifices, holy acceptable to them. Doesn't it talk about us surrendering? Doesn't it talk about us confessing?
Yeah.
I mean, all those things to me are acts of relinquishing our humanity. Romans 3:23, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God.
Right.
I mean, I think our biblical foundation says that we got to look at ourselves. That but he said he'll present us blameless in front of his Father. So at the end of the day, grace and all the I guess when I'm looking at all of these happiness and joy, when we are in this type of emotional state,
right.
it seems like the biblical kingdom principles aren't in effect. It's like that we're not using those.
Well, that's because we learn more from action than we do actual words, right? So I can hear the words in the Bible all day long. I can hear what it says all day long.
Right.
But the problem is, no one has ever presented to me. I've never seen that around me. Majority of people have never seen someone truthfully do introspection, right? So if I've never seen it, I've never seen an example of it, I will never do it. We can hear the words all day long, and that's why I say we go back to the Pentecostal, the Baptist, where they shoving it in your head, and everything you do, you're going to die, go to hell for. But guess what? They talk about the exact same thing, but we've never been taught how to utilize those principles.
You know, what's funny is that as an athlete, one of the things that we were never able to do was make excuses. When you're playing sports, and again, as a point guard, the ball in my hand, that was my responsibility. If I had a turnover or something happened, it was on me.
That's what I love about it.
Athletes, for some reason, embrace that mantra of no excuses while they're playing.
In the areas where they feel comfortable doing it.
And
that's everybody.
Correct, no doubt. No, and I think everybody can do it. But I know for athletes, I remember having a conversation with a professional quarterback, and I said to him one time, I said, we were talking about his career, lengthy NFL career, Super Bowl champion, and financially went through some stuff. And I said to him, I said, if you were on the field and made a mistake, if you came to the sidelines and kept making mistakes or saying, having excuses, how long would you play? He said, well, I wouldn't play. I said, why is it okay to make excuses now? The areas that we're comfortable in, we feel like we're in control of.
Correct.
But it's truly the areas that we're vulnerable in where our real strength is.
Absolutely.
And I think at times like this is a time where we need to really be able to look at, so where is your real faith? Where are you really about? I think the focus that we have right now, to me, lends credence to more focus on fear than faith.
I know it does. I absolutely know it does. See, the problem with change is most people talk about it, nobody really wants to do it, right? Because introspection means I have to go down into my ish.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And so I'm going to realize that every relationship that I've been through, it wasn't them. it was me. Every job that I've gotten fired from, every business that I tried to start, it wasn't the economy, it wasn't the boss, it was me. So that's an ugly place to be. And I think that's what we really fear, is fear looking at who we are in the mirror, right? Because it's amazing how we can see everybody-ish without even thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and a heartbeat. We got 20/20 vision for this stuff.
Correct. For us,
but we can't see nothing but it.
Blind. Can't see nowhere, right?
Guys, we're on 904 Live. Do me a favor. Follow what goes on here on 904 Live. Mr. Stephon Perry is doing a phenomenal job getting good content out, getting great shows on. There's a lot of good information right here in front of you. What I love about this is that his platform and his forum is really informational. He wants to give people real perspective, and I'm so thankful that I get to do this show every week with Dr. Gentry. We get to have a good conversation and truthfully challenge the way people think. We don't claim to be right. We don't claim to be true. But we know that some of the things that we're saying are uncomfortable for a lot of people. And I believe that some of the things we're saying, once you sit back and fully pull emotion out, they'll resonate with you. Because we want you to be the best you can be. And we know there's more in you than what we're seeing right now. We don't want to see you limited. We want to see you go to that next level. And you can't go to that next level if you're harboring and holding heavy stuff. Try climbing up a mountain with a bunch of weight on your waist.
Absolutely.
You're going to make the trip that much tougher. Let some of that stuff go. You know, you talked about accountability, and for me, I was the same way. I had to say to myself, what I went through, I allowed. Mm-hmm. Now, that truly is another level, because if you have truly been through some gut-wrenching mental abuse, if you've been through some challenging stuff, and you can still say, you know what, I allowed it.
Absolutely.
Now you're moving into a different place. I don't think people really are ready to say, I allowed that to happen, because of what it was inflicted on them. Mm-hmm. Now, again, let's look at this this last death.
Now, let me put this out here. Now, okay. If you have any questions, we're actually monitoring the Facebook feed. So if you have any questions at all, please put them in the feed, and we'll try to get them answered before the end of the show. I'm sorry, Coach. Go ahead.
When I say that, here's what somebody say. Well, Mr. Floyd didn't. He didn't allow that to happen. Mm-hmm. And again, I would challenge you to say that at some level, it did. At some level. Now, dealing with that actual act of murder, no, he didn't allow that. So it depends on where your mind is on the things that go on in your life. A lot of that's hard to swallow. And I get that. And I think it's a different level of thinking when you can say, you know what, everything that goes on in my life I have control over. Mm-hmm. And it's well, he didn't have control over that. And depending on how you look at it, you can have an argument about that. You can have a different look at it. But I'm not debating that. My whole point is that in your life, happiness is controlled by how you see yourself. Mm-hmm. And what is it that we need to do more of to get us to a place where we can see that happiness?
Absolutely.
What needs to be done? Because you talked about it earlier. People will ask for things or desire certain things to move them toward what they feel would make them happy.
Right.
And in the end, I asked for that, now that wasn't it.
Right.
Because there's the God space they talk about, the empty space that's there. And I just believe that for me, has been filled. And I walk around oftentimes in a level of peace that sometimes is scary.
Right.
Because a lot of stuff just doesn't bother me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And people say, well, have you always been that way? No, I ain't always been that way. No, I ain't always been that way. But I really walk around now. And again, that's going through financial struggle. That's going through things that aren't perfect. That's going through character challenges. That's going through all these things are growing.
Right.
But I still am at peace.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at peace more than I've ever been in my life. And I think that's where I would love to see people get. When we talk about you're responsible for your own happiness, I think what we're asking you guys is to reevaluate where you are putting the blame on you not being happy.
Correct.
Who are you attributing that to? Because what you're really saying is you're giving that person more control over your emotions in your life than you have in yourself.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to do that. I want to control who I am. I want to control my emotions. But it's very hard, I think, for people to take that ownership and authority and still be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. I think when people take that ownership and authority, now they become standoffish. They become guarded. They become very, very opinionated. They become very judgmental.
Absolutely.
And I think to be truly in that place of peace, you have to take authority of your life, control of your emotions, but still be vulnerable. Right. I still have to be willing to be hurt.
Right, and that's the problem. Mm-hmm. Majority of people don't realize that, right? First of all, you can't fix a problem until you admit one exists, right? Second, you can't. Where there's external conflict, there'll always be internal conflict. And most people, and I talk about it all the time, have value conflicts.
Correct.
Right? And that's where a lot of the anger, frustration, and pain that people have in their life is because they're dealing with a value conflict. So let me explain real quick. Value conflict. I want to be liked. I want to be loved. However, I don't want to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Value conflict. External conflict, internal frustration. Right? I want to be happy with. I want to be in a great relationship. However, I want to be guarded. Value conflict. That's where most of the frustration is coming in at. And people have to really start to sit down and say, where am I conflicted at? I want to have money in my bank account. However, I want a $1,000 car payment to show everybody how great I am. Value conflict. And once we begin to align what's going on inside of us, what's going on external, the frustration, the pain, the agony, it begins to go away. But most people have to begin to deal with what's going on inside first.
Mm-hmm. I was listening. I told you I was listening earlier to the Miseducation of the Negro, and I listened to that book today. I felt like, while I'm at home and working, I wanted to listen to that book, and it was interesting some of the commentary that was made about the residual residue of that time period, of what we have accepted and what continues to still be the residue in today, 100 and something years later.
Correct.
It's still the same residue. The same mindsets that we have, the same apprehensions, the same fears that we have. And what we need to understand is the more we look at the fears, the more we look at the problem, the more the problem is going to be there. Mm-hmm. And we talked about maybe not facing racism face on, but I know it's there. Mm-hmm. I just don't look for it.
Absolutely.
I don't run into it. Absolutely. So I just miss it. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm aware of it. I know it exists. I know it's around me. Don't get me wrong. But I just haven't, and I think that when you say that, people say, well, you're not looking at everything. You're walking past it. No, I'm not. I'm fully aware of it. But why do I have to engage in it? Right. I was listening on the way over here, and one of the they were talking about the apology was issued by Drew Brees, and one of the football players said, I'm not going to accept it. Mm-hmm. And my first thought was, why does it matter? Why does him apologizing truly affecting your existence?
Correct.
If you don't apologize, okay,
I'm good.
I'm good, I still try to figure that out. Why is that necessary? Why is atonement? Why is somebody's acknowledgement so important to people? Why is it so important?
Because one of the biggest fears we have is rejection. So, if I feel rejected by someone else, and this is all dealing with now emotional intelligence, right? So if one of the biggest problems is rejection, the biggest thing that we fear is rejection, we always want to be acknowledged and validated in our actions, in our belief systems. Once again, one of those things that will strip away happiness, right? I ultimately believe once people begin to look at the things that truthfully bother them, they will see none of it has to do with something that's long-term, something that is long-term, what's the word for it? Something is long-term, that makes sense long-term.
Right.
Something that will affect them in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? It's a sense of anxiety they're holding. And when we begin to release that anxiety, the comparisons, right, when we no longer have a need to be validated, when we no longer have a need to be accepted by other individuals, then we live in a completely different world of peace.
Because to me, holding on to that makes you upset, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
If you did something to me and you said, "Hey, coach, I apologize," and I don't accept it, it's messing with me. It's still bothering me. Mm-hmm. What you said is still eating at me. I'm still going through that. And I'm like, I don't want to go through that. I don't want that in my life. I don't want that. It's killing me.
Right.
Why I don't understand why people want to do that. Right. I can understand how you feel about it, and I can understand about it, but why does it continue to linger? Why do you want to hold on to that?
Well, James 4:1. You know it. James 4:1.
Yes.
Where does all the frustration, where does all the arguing and frustration come from? Does it not come from a place within inside of You. So we're constantly looking for something external, and even biblically it says that frustration, that rage, that anger, that battling has something to do with inside of you. So you have to begin to dig deeper inside of yourself to find out what is causing this problem. What is it connected to? Is it connected to something from childhood, which most frustration, anger comes from? Is something that happened in your childhood.
I was watching D.L. Hughley today. I was watching him on TikTok. Y'all know I like TikTok. I was watching D.L. Hughley on TikTok. And here's what he said. He said it's the image of the black man that's more scary than the actual confrontation.
Correct.
It's what we conjure up as that whole vision, that picture, that's scarier than the actual confrontation itself.
Absolutely.
He said, so their opinion of what that could look like, what it may look like, challenges more people. And when he said that to me, I said, that is unbelievably true. And I think the same imagery works on anybody who doesn't have happiness or joy. It's what they see it being bad as. I think that there are people in the world today that still see what's going on as slavery and lynching. And even though I think I heard Bishop McLaughlin talk about the word lynching and how it's used today. And it's basically what we're seeing. So I think that there's a belief that actually what we're going through today is kind of reenacting that in a different fashion. So I think there's imagery that goes along with the vision that we have, and when it's played out in front of us, it only reinforces that thing. And I think what D.L. Hughley was saying is that if you have an image of an African American person and something that's done reinforces that image, that image is that much more real to you.
Right, but it taps into one thing: emotion, not rationality.
Correct.
Right, and I think that's where the unhappiness stems from, living off emotion. Right, living off emotion of past things that could happen in my life. That's where the unhappiness stems from. And I believe once we get a clear vision of who we are, understanding of what's going on inside of us, right, and a clear vision of the path we're going on. I tell you all the time, I have 3 principles. Peace. If it ain't a part of my purpose, it doesn't bring me peace, I'm not involved in it.
Exactly.
And I'm not passionate about it, I'm not involved in it, right? Because I have a clear path. So how can I allow something to bring me frustration when I don't even accept it if it's not in peace, right? And I think we have to have those guiding principles for our life. I'm not going to sit back and listen to the news, fear monger all day long if it's not a part of my peace, right? And that's when we allow too much of the wrong things into our spirit. If I'm constantly dumping trash into your spirit, guess the only thing that can come out?
Correct.
Trash.
It's just like a computer. If you download viruses,
right,
ain't nothing but viruses gonna be right.
That's it.
And I think that's what we talk about biblically: guarding your ear gate, guarding your eye. We talk about guarding your mind.
Right.
We talk about all those things, and I think we literally allow ourselves. And again, this is back to that. What we've allowed certain information, we've allowed certain feelings, we've allowed certain things to come and take residence in us, and we don't know how to deal with it. We don't know how to handle it, and it's a very challenging thing. As an African American man in the world today, what is it that we can do to improve the future of African American men?
It's the craziest thing. First, unlearning, right? I think the biggest thing about anything is we have to unlearn what we think we know, right? Once we begin to unlearn what we think we know, it starts with us. I don't care what you say. The Black Panthers were a radical group. They're a radical group. However, their principles were sound. So what they tried to do was start a completely economy, an African American economy, right? But it dealt with education. And I think that's what it really goes back to. Let's educate, right? Principles are sound biblically. If I look at other cultures, if I look at the Jewish culture, they live off principles. And it's never about changing everyone else. It's always about maintaining and understanding what we do.
You know, I think that was one of the things for basketball for me. Dean Smith and John Wooden, 2 legendary coaches in the game, vowed they would never scout the other team. And the time I coached for the years that I did, I never did either. Because I believed if I got real good at what I did, it didn't matter what you did.
Right.
I was so well prepared that whatever you threw at me that I wasn't ready for, I had taught them well enough that we could adapt on the fly and make a change. And I think in the world that we live in today, that's one thing that we don't do. We don't get real good at what we do, because if you get real good at what you do, it doesn't matter what the other team does. Get real good at what you do. I remember Brian Tracy saying this one time. He said, if you're in the top 1% of who you are, you'll never be out of work.
Wow.
If you get real good at what you do, I don't care whether it's music, I don't care whether it's sports, I don't care whether it's law, I don't care what arena it is. When you're the top 1% of what you do, you'll never be out of work. And I think that we have to have that mindset about being the best, not being average, not just getting by. I got to be the best. And people will say, well, you're striving for stuff. No. I'm striving to maximize my time on life.
Right.
I've been given a destiny, I've been given an assignment, and it's a short window to get it done.
Absolutely.
I want to get as much done while I'm here.
Right. And that too is another conflict internally that people deal with. I want this, but I'm not doing everything I'm supposed to deal with. Value conflict, right? So now I'm angry inside.
Right.
Because I'm really not living up to what I say I want to do, or who I want to be. And so now I'm conflicted, but I don't want to really focus on that. What I want to do is I want to project my rage, anger, and frustration out on everything else in the world.
We're going to ask you guys out there, what makes you happy? What makes you happy? Do people even know what makes them happy?
I think not. Because I didn't. I'm just being honest. I didn't know what made me happy. I didn't know what brought me joy. When I was out my first relationship, the second relationship, I focused so much on work. I focused so much on trying to get better. I couldn't drown out the negativity around me. So when I finally got out of that, I tell everybody, I became the yes man. And not in the way you mean like every do boy, yes, yes, sir. I said this was the first time in my life I began to do everything I had never done before. So one day I looked into, I was on a church website, and they said B Club. And first thing that came to my mind is black people don't do bees. But in that instance, I realized you got to try it now. Next thing you know, I love bees. I went horseback riding, fishing, because most people don't even know what brings them happiness.
Right.
And I have to talk about my man Willis. So Willis was one of the guys I met the first time I went to a B Club, right? And this guy exuded happiness. Like, you see him, you get happy just watching him. So much joy inside. So he invited me over to his house. I seen the bees. I ended up getting my bees. I went out. I was gardening with him. I would go out there at least 2-3 times a week. Garden with him, tend to his bees, help him cut the yard, cut down trees. And there's one day, now I'm dealing in this depressed state, this frustrated state, me trying to understand why I'm angry, why I'm mad. And so I had to take the opportunity to ask him.
Right.
I said, Willis, what makes you so happy? And this old guy, I call him the white great-grandfather I never had. He's about 78, smart, love this man. And we were talking, and he talked in a roundabout way. And he said, Adrian, you see me come out every day. I cut my grass. I tend to my bees. He's like, if a lady at the house, at church, they need help at their house, I go over there. He takes the money from his honey, and he was funding a young girl going through medical school. And he said, Adrian, he was an old executive from Railroad.
Okay.
And he said, Adrian, clients, they're going to come and go. Relationships, they're going to come and go. He said, but you truly want to be happy, do something you love every day. And the reality is most people don't even know what they love, so how could I possibly be happy with my life if I don't know what I love, what I enjoy?
And you know what? Hearing that from Willis, hearing that from me from Willis, that just resonated with me why I have peace. Because what I do every day, I love. I love speaking into people's lives. I love being there for people. I love loving on people. I love that. That's just kind of who I am. So I get to do that every day. And I think that that is something that we are kept from growing up in education the way it is. We're not taught to figure out what makes you tick. We're taught to go out and find a job to pay your bills. We're taught to go out and find a job to sustain your life or your family. Never do what it loves you to do. But here's what I've loved. I know for a fact that when you're doing what you love, it can create its own economy.
Absolutely.
When you're really doing what you love, it can create its own end. When you're doing what you love, you never get tired of it. The passion that goes along with it. I say this all the time. Motivation is for average people. Passionate people don't need motivation. Average people do. And that's why it's such a big business, because there's so many people that are comfortable. There's so many people, and when I use average, I'm talking about comfortable, not willing to take risks. They have to be motivated because they get in a lull all the time.
Right.
Passionate people, you don't have to get to the gym. You don't have to get Kobe Bryant to the gym.
No, he loves what he does.
You don't have to get
Passionate
Michael
about
Jordan
it.
to the gym. You ain't getting Tiger Woods to the golf
Right.
course. You don't have to get Venus and Serena to the tennis court.
Right.
You didn't have to do that.
Right.
They were you didn't get Michael Phelps in the pool.
Right.
They were going to do what they want. That just was going to happen.
Right.
And I think that with people, whether it's music, the entertainment industry, I mean, those guys, Jay-Z, Dre, Snoop, they're doing it. They're still doing it now.
Mm-hmm.
In their 50s, they still getting it in because it's what they love to do. They just don't mind doing it,
Right.
and they seem to be able to pivot and adapt to the newness of the industry,
Right.
no matter what it is.
Right.
They still, because it's their passion, so they're not locked into a sound. They've reinvented themselves not only in their genre but in other verticals.
Right.
They got into TV. They started hosting TV shows. They've been in movies.
Right.
They're doing cooking shows. I mean, Snoop doing one with
Mother Stewart.
Mother
Right.
Stewart. I mean, they found themselves everywhere.
Right.
They found themselves marketable because being them is their passion. I think that's one of the things I want to make sure we drive home as we're leaving right now is it's okay for you to be your passion.
Correct.
And I think that's one thing that people don't do. I didn't do it. I didn't have it. I downplayed me so much because there was a narrative that said humility meant reduce yourself. Humility meant stay down.
Be weak.
Yeah.
And that's what majority of people suffer from. They believe humility means to be weak.
Piety, just lower yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Lower yourself, back up, stay small. And that's not it. Everything that a person wants to do, and I say it like this, if God placed it in you, that big dream, that business that you want to start, that was something he gave you for a reason. And you're supposed to go big.
Correct.
And it's still humble as long as you're confident in your abilities, but I can say I'm wrong.
Right.
And I had to learn that, right?
Me
the
too.
same
Me
thing.
too.
I'm confident in my abilities, but at the same time, I'm wrong. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. So start learning how to be great in your own way. Start learning how to do the things that you love to do.
I was watching Joyce Meyer the other morning. She said this. She said, the statistic that says no matter what you do, 10% of people in the world are going to hate you anyway.
Right.
So just go be yourself.
Right.
I mean, and that is the biggest thing. Who are you? Humility, here's what true humility is, and here's what I learned. Tagging on to what you said. True humility is taking what God gave you and using it to the max. If you're truly humble, you're so thankful of what God gave you, I got to use this to the max because you gave it to me. If you're not, then you're being selfish.
Correct.
If you're not using everything He gave you. And that was something I was always committed to working on. I was competitive, I wasn't motivated. I was competitive, I wasn't driven.
Right.
Because I was never doing the thing I wanted to do. I could do anything. Because competition says, okay, I'll learn it. I'll figure it out, I'll make it happen. But when you really start doing what you love to do, when you really start walking in your gifting, your anointing, for those of you, when you start walking in that, it's a different kind of game.
Absolutely.
It's a different kind of game.
Absolutely. And I think you have to attach yourself to that. Like that's truthfully, you have to attach yourself to your anointing, to your gift, to the very things that make you happy. Those are the things that internally you can hold on to. I realized something. Got a divorce, lost all money, lost everything, right? I was attached to that. That was a part of who I was. So I can't be happy if I don't have money, right? I attach myself to being a husband, right? That's who I am, right? That's supposed to make me happy. When that's gone, I no longer have happiness. I attach myself to business. When that business is gone, I no longer be happy. So what do I have inside of me that I can really show the world, right? And people have to understand there's two sides of this thing. If you're if you're cocky, egotistical, insecure, both of those are irrational principles. Period. And you can't say that you're acting in faith. You can't say that I'm not fearful. No. If you're insecure or you're egotistical, both of them are irrational principles, and you're walking in fear.
No question.
To truthfully be happy, you can walk in your gifting without fear because perfect love casts out all fear.
No doubt, no doubt. And perfect love for yourself, perfect love for who gave you a gift, and perfect love for what you're supposed to do with it. And I think when you really understand that, that's why you're in control of your happiness. You've got to decide and define what it is that God gave you, who you're supposed to be. And most of us know, without a shadow of a doubt, that we're not doing that.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why it's easier to focus on the problems that are external, the things that are away from us, the things that are outside of us, because it's easier for us not to have to deal with our involvement in that. I can just be group minded. I can group think, not you think. And I think that when you really want joy and happiness, it comes down to a resounding love for myself. It's new. It's something that has to happen. It is, I believe, a shift in the world that's got to happen. Ask yourself, do you love yourself? I mean, honestly, do you love yourself? Not do you love what you're doing. Not do you love who you've become. Do you love yourself? Can you be alone with yourself and be in love? Can you be alone with yourself and be happy?
Absolutely.
Happiness is something you control. You control your happiness. It's 8 o'clock. We are done.
Done.
Hopefully, you got something out of this. I believe you did. We do this every Monday. We want to thank 904 Live for giving us this opportunity. Mr. Petty, we love you, man. Appreciate everything you do. Hope you guys got something from it. Hit the share button. Share this with somebody, because somebody may need to realize that they need to love themselves too. I'm the real GM, Grayson Marshall Jr., the metacognition maven, the guy that gets you to believe in you, and he is
Dr. Adrian. Never forget the A Gentry.
We'll see you next Monday. Same time, right here, 904 Live. The topic next week is what's holding you back. It's our first topic 9 years ago. We're going to bring it back again.
Woo!
Good night. God bless.
Charms make this a very walkable part of town. Fill up on boutique bargains in the bohemian Five Points neighborhood. Sip fresh squeezed juices in stylish Avondale, and stroll along the beautiful St. Johns River in the striking Memorial Park. Then slip indoors to the Sunray Cinema. Its historic beginnings are now highlighted by an offbeat style.
When the theater opened in 1927, it was one of the very first to have two things, one of which is sound and the other is